A new Virgin Media News documentary, Celtic Cosmos, which explores Ireland's contribution to the global space industry, is airing tonight.
Yes, and here to tell us more is Virgin Media News reporter Paul Quinn. But before we speak to Paul, let's take a look at what we can expect from the documentary.
Space has this capacity for us to consider the bigger questions about our existence. Because when you look up, you can't help but feel you're part of something much, much, much bigger.
Everywhere you look, there are really incredible things being done. I think like magic, like stuff that shouldn't work, you know? None of this stuff comes out of nature, right? Like nature doesn't make a rocket, nature doesn't make a spacecraft. It's all human ingenuity. It's all standing on the shoulders of giants who comes before.
Space is cutting edge, it's the frontier. Why should we not be in the frontier? Why should we not be cutting edge? And I think it just reflects the kind of people we have in Ireland.
Goodness.
Thank you, Paul, for joining us. Very
Thanks
interesting.
for having me.
Ireland involved in the space exploration. Who knew?
I know, exactly. But there's so many Irish companies involved in it and so many Irish people that are involved in it. It kind of came about, I think it's the great unknown. I think space kind of fascinates so many of us.
Yeah.
And I think in particular in recent years, there's been so much focus on space, especially with social media. And we've seen astronauts use social media to kind of show the work that they're doing. We have Dr. Norah Patten from Mayo, who's going to be the first Irish astronaut in space next year as part of a research project. So that's how it all came about. And I kind of just thought, well, what else is going on? And how many other Irish people or Irish companies are involved? And there's a huge amount.
Were you surprised by that? By the amount of people past and current that are contributing to space?
Yeah, 100%. I kind of got in touch with Enterprise Ireland. They have a great team there working on all of this. And I just said, you know, is there any other Irish in this area? And they came back with the list as long as myself. So as part of the doc, we travelled to the European Space Agency's astronaut training centre in Cologne, in Germany. They also have a facility in the Netherlands. And I tell you, you couldn't go up and down the corridor but bump into an Irish person. It's
Really?
yeah, it's really impressive how many people are working in this area. And I think like when I was growing up in school in the 80s and the 90s, you know, that was never a possibility, you know, working in space or space exploration. And there's so much focus as well on, you know, when you think of space, you think of an astronaut, but that's just one person. And it in the documentary we hear tonight, where it takes thousands of people to send that astronaut to space.
Totally.
And it takes thousands more to keep them alive in space.
While they're in there. And is that the thing? So is it just that we've a lot of Irish people, or is there industries within Ireland working on this?
Oh, yeah.
Like companies in Ireland who are doing components and different things like that?
100%. There's around 110 different companies at the minute in Ireland that have contracts with the European Space Agency.
Really?
Oh my
So there's a company, Railtra, where Dr. Norah Patten works with. They are making components for spacecraft, and I think it's a little camera they're making. So it's going to be at the very top of the spacecraft. So when the spacecraft enters space, the very first thing that will enter the atmosphere is a piece of equipment that's made here in Ireland.
Wow.
So there's loads of really innovative companies working on it. As I said, when we travelled to Germany and to the Netherlands, just really interesting people from like Cork and Kildare and Tipperary, and who a lot of them kind of fell into the whole area of space exploration, but they're doing amazing work. Like one guy who's working on the International Space Station, another guy who they're building this craft which is going to land on the moon. They've a purpose-built facility in Cologne. It's like recreated the surface of the moon as well. That's all part of the astronaut training.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
You mentioned Norah Patten there, and what a woman. Oh my God, she might be the first Irish person in space.
Yeah, she will be.
Will be, sorry, will be.
Yeah. She's due to go on a research mission next year. And like her story, and I think, you know, she's been really good at highlighting it and promoting her own story over the last year and kind of getting people involved and invested in space. She went to NASA when she was 11 as part of like a holiday in the US, and she was just fascinated. And she, from that moment, she was like, I want to work in this area.
She wrote a letter, didn't she?
She wrote a letter to NASA asking them for a job or how she'd get a job.
How she'd get into it.
And they wrote back to her, and she said she still has that letter, and that kind of got her into aeronautical engineering in Limerick. And yeah, her kind of journey from an 11-year-old, and now next year she's going to be going to space. It's kind of remarkable, and it's inspirational too for a lot of younger people who maybe didn't have the opportunity
or even know. Just watching the preview of it last night, the word passion kept coming up.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such a passion for them. And like you're sort of saying, the thousands of people involved to getting them there, thousands of people getting them alive, because it's a very dangerous thing to go into space. And then I know you spoke to her about Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, who only came back. They were only supposed to go for a couple of weeks, and they ended up stranded for 9 months.
I know.
In
Can you
space.
imagine?
No.
Like if you had plans within those 9 months.
I had a wedding planned. Like,
I mean, you'd be raging, wouldn't you? You've missed out on all these
but
opportunities.
like things like that can go wrong. So,
Yeah, but they're so
that's
well
why,
trained as well.
Yeah.
They're so well trained, these astronauts, and not all of them make it. And we hear that from some of the people working in the astronaut training centre. Like, you'll have so many people apply to become an astronaut, but for whatever reason, they may just not be the right fit for it. And they train for this, and they train for the possibilities that they could be up there for a long time. But also, Norah was saying, can you imagine the amount of the research and the benefits of studying both those astronauts that just came back, just to see how they adjust
Effect
to
on their
life,
body
the
and stuff
effects on
like
their
that,
body, because
yeah.
it does have an effect on their body,
course
being
it
in
would.
space for that length of time. But yeah, the passion, and particularly the Irish people, it's remarkable to see. They all just love their job. They just think, how cool is it that I get to work in an area like this? Because we were speaking to one guy, Neil from Cork, and he was saying when he was walking over to meet us to do the interview, he was looking up at the moon, and he was like, I'm working on something right now that's going to be up there in 6 years' time.
Yeah,
Like, how amazing is that?
it is amazing.
And you'll be
yeah.
able to pinpoint exactly what part of the moon it's on.
Well, space is such a lucrative industry. Do you think Ireland could become a serious competitor?
Well, I think any of the Irish people you talk to, they believe they are serious competitors.
And they're what they do.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
the global space race.
Yeah, and Ireland was a founding member of the European Space Agency, and look,
Yes.
it also comes down to money. But they are putting such huge efforts, and we're a big player in the terms of the amount of companies and the innovation here in Ireland. So yeah, look, I think with so much other stuff going on in the world, funding around housing and health and all these things, like they would have a concern that maybe the eye will be taken off. So why are we spending money on?
And I think the US is backing away from it slightly,
and
isn't it? The money is not being put into it the way it was.
And that is the big concern. And I suppose that the team in Enterprise Ireland and all the Irish companies that are working in it would really be hoping that governments and people can see the benefits of the work that they're doing, and the benefit of the research and what it'll mean for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And, will commercial space exploration become a real thing? Will we be able to pay for a ticket and go off in a craft and orbit around Earth? I mean, I don't know, would you want to do it?
Would you want? I probably wouldn't, but we know that there are so many people out there,
definitely.
and there's a list of
yeah.
people who will spend any amount of money just to do it. But it's fascinating, Paul. It's on tonight. It's called Celtic Cosmos, and it airs tonight at 8:30 on Virgin Media One and Virgin Media Play. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
this morning.